is ready. Ready on the right, ready on the left.
Hey everybody, welcome to Saved Rounds. This is episode 32. We are here with Henry. He is one of the interns, and he is also a board member at The Anchor. And Henry, thank you for being on
the
the podcast.
Of course.
So I got some questions to ask, and first thing we're going to talk about is, how did you come to know and follow Jesus?
Oh, that's probably about 1978-ish time frame. But yeah, so we had moved to California in about 1972. Used to drive on down by Newport. There was a church down there, small church. It was actually kind of in a tent.
Like a Calvary Chapel?
Yeah, it was like a big old Calvary Chapel. I used to drive it on the way to my dad's work. It was kind of, they were hippies. But see, that's not the first time that I've seen hippies. So that would probably have been with my grandmother in Keene, New Hampshire. And she had a picture on the wall, some long-haired dude. And a little kid, and I kind of said, well, who's that? And she told me it's God. And that's when I realized God was a hippie. Stuck in my head. It was a problem because my dad and folks were kind of quite conservative and, weren't fond of hippies. So I didn't know how I felt all about that. But no, I ended up going to church or first getting saved, or, at least making a public profession, at about 1978-ish time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Friends of mine were, we were all hanging out, and I said, somebody said, hey, you want to go see a concert? And, we thinking concert, girls, that kind of thing. I said, yeah, let's go party. Went down there, went to this little place called Calvary Chapel. Got up there, music was okay. And then the guy had me convinced that I'd go to hell if I got in a car accident that night. So I made a profession of faith and walked up there. So that's where it started. That's where I make the first public profession of faith. But I've always had a difficulty, and it's a harder difficulty coming over the years, is when did I actually become a Christian? And, it's covered biblically, and it's a lot of people have talked about it, but trying to attach it to your own personal circumstances is kind of tough. What I am convinced of is that God had a plan from the moment I was born, and that hundreds of seeds were being planted. Some that I'm, coming increasingly conscious of, and some that get revealed to me. And, and it's kind of a cool thing to find out that God had his hand on your life from the moment you took your first breath. Even to a grandmother that's pointing up there and telling you that guy sitting next to John F. Kennedy on the wall is, because he was a good Catholic, of course, but was God. And that's the start. And even though for those that don't even share your own particular brand of faith, God puts them to use as well. And it's just, as I contemplate it, it's kind of incredible. So about that time frame. Yeah.
Okay. Now, 1978, and you served in the U.S. Navy.
I did. So about 1978-ish time frame, it starts getting a little serious, and about 1979. So I make a public profession of faith, but I didn't move from a public profession of faith to somebody jumping into the Bible every day, or even being interested in going to church. I mean, for the first 6 months of, 6 months to a year of my faith, I was pretty convinced that the Bible was just another version of the I Ching. Okay. Mm-hmm. Bad doctrine. But, the good news is good doctrine is not a requirement to get to heaven. So, it's, professing the Lord Jesus and putting your faith in him. And so I kind of hang on that. But you kind of grow. And so I'm still partying, by the way, probably for about a year or two after I'm first making a public profession. I'm not really sold out. Okay. And I'm partying over one night in a place called Mackenzie Park up in Laguna Hills, California, and just passed out on a Saturday night. And I woke up and I went by this little place called the Evangelical Free Church of Laguna Hills. Okay. And people are in the parking lot. I'm kind of tired, kind of frazzled. And I said, yeah, I'll just go to church. I'll just go check it out. So I get into church. They've got hymnals. They sing funny. It's really kind of like they've got clothes on that don't look like mine. It's really a little bit old schoolish. Okay. They ask the visitors to stand up and I stand up and, publicly recognized and welcome and all of that. And, and then they kind of interview, well, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And I says, I just dropped in. That's all I said. And of course, church service gets over and I'm kind of going to go walk home now. And I get out and I walk home and going out to walk home. And a guy by the name of Rich McIntyre comes running up. Hi, I'm Rich. And, and somehow we're making small talks. And he finally asks if I have a job. Okay. And I said that I didn't. He kind of went wandering off. Then comes over the youth pastor. Hi, my name is Michael Delamarian. And, he's shaking my hand and hey, we're having a trip for the young adults up to Yosemite. You want to go? Okay. Right. Then, Rich McIntyre is coming back or something. About the time, this guy by the name of Keller who owned a company. Well, we've got you a job. So from day one there, all of a sudden, it was that personal touch that reached to me personally that starts making a difference. Michael's taking me under his wing, teaching me Bible verses, correcting me about my bad doctrine, learning that the I Ching and the Bible aren't the same thing, that kind of thing. And, and that kind of blossoms. That's where now I'm going. But, I'm in there for about a year, right? And I had already entered the Navy and I was in a late entry program. And it gets time I got to tell these guys I got to go because I hadn't told them. I felt bad. I didn't want to tell them I had to go.
And what year was that?
This is 1980.
1980?
And in 1980, I'm feeling bad, right? I don't want to tell them that I've got to go and that I'm going into the Navy and that, I'm going to leave the church. And I'm kind of going up there and confessing to him that I have to leave for the Navy, hoping that, they'd say to me, well, you don't have to honor that contract. No, not how it works out. So I did, and I entered the Navy, and the Navy is, well, it's not exactly a discipleship program for Christ.
No.
Okay.
And how many years in the Navy, sir?
About 6, a little over 6. Yeah. 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 Went to school for 2 years or about 2 years and then ended up living aboard a ship for about 4. Yeah.
So you were saying it's not exactly a discipleship program for Christ. So I take it a lot of crazy things.
Yeah. You know that expression, carnal Christian?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was one.
Okay.
Yeah. I was one. But that's the amazing thing. I mean, it's not something you get particularly proud of, but as you mature, you get to really recognize the mercy of the Lord because his hand's still with you all of this time. He's not letting you go. In fact, he's pursuing you. There's nothing that you can do sinful where you don't feel convicted, and so that is one of those things that you get to be taught,
Let's talk about a little bit about the time you're in Navy. So what was your MOS? What did you do?
So I was an ET. You
were an extraterrestrial?
No, it's called electronics technician. We don't have MOSs in the Navy. Okay.
That's right. It's rates. Is that what they call it?
Yeah. So it's an ET. I was an electronics technician. Went to school up in Great Lakes. Real garden spot, by the way. Wonderful place. What wonderful place to spend a winter.
I've been there.
So we went up there.
Do you guys still call it Great Mistakes?
Well, I don't call it anything. I don't go there. No, it's great mistakes then. It's great mistakes now.
Yeah.
It'll always be kind of great mistakes. Yeah. Yeah, that kind of thing.
So you're an ET, 6 years. How many countries did you go to?
A bunch. So
What was
let's
your
say
favorite
I go
country?
Hong Kong, Guam, Philippines, Thailand, um, Australia, Tonga, Fiji, Nicaragua, El
Oh, you went to
Salvador,
Nicaragua, huh?
Panama, Alaska. That could be a country. Alaska's a country. It's different.
Alaska.
Very different. Yeah, we went to a bunch of places.
What year did you go to El Salvador?
Oh gosh, that would have been. So that's about the time that like they're mining harbors and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a real interesting mission.
Was it during when they were having the Civil War?
Yeah, it was where the Sandinistas and all of that. You know, we'd sit out there on a boat and we'd provide intelligence to I guess people are coming in from Honduras and El Salvador smuggling weapons. We'd provide intelligence on it. El Salvadorians would come out there with little piranha boats and blow them out of the water while you were out on Steel Beach eating hamburgers and, French fries.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I ask about El Salvador is because I take it when you were in the Navy going to El Salvador, how often were you on the ground in El Salvador? Was it more on the ship? Except for the little beach. Did you actually go inland?
No. We don't go do ground stuff.
Okay. The reason being is my dad is from El Salvador, and there is a picture of me with my parents in the back of a military truck with El Salvadoran soldiers at that time.
Oh, wow. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like maybe, I don't know what year it was. I could have been 4 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So small world.
Yeah.
I was just curious because it'd been funny if me as a 4-year-old went by you as an adult.
Yeah. No, we were an independent steamer. We got to do a lot of cool, different stuff. We got to pretend to be the Coast Guard and stop sailboats.
Tend to be the Coast Guard.
Yeah, smuggling drugs. So, we actually caught a sailboat one time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well.
So we're up there, they had to figure out because we're not cops, so they have to bring the Coast Guard aboard, and then you'd flag the ship as a Coast Guard vessel. And so we're coming up out of Panama, and we somehow, and you have to imagine this is the day before, rapid communications. You got teletypes and all of that. It's not like we've, got direct communications to Washington or anything like that. No internet, nothing. And so, but anyway, we identify the hull number of a sailboat. Okay. And it turns out to be it's a suspected gun runner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when we're a United States guided missile frigate, and we're going to handle business. And so we come over to the Marine radio that everybody's supposed to be on, and we come over there, sailboat to our bearing XYZ. This is the United States destroyer Reed. Drop your sails, we're coming aboard. Right? Dude comes over the Marine Channel. United States destroyer Reed, because, we've got we're up on the 50 cals, we got a bird on the rail, we got a 76 millimeter gun trailing for a sailboat. We're all at general quarters, right? And this guy comes over the 1MC and he says something to the effect of, United States destroyer Reed, we have X kilos of pot and no weapons.
You did not want any trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. So you come to know Christ 1978.
Yeah.
Okay. You through Calvary Chapel. You're now in the Navy. You're carnal Christian. Things are happening. You served 6 years. And at what point in your life do you feel your walk with Christ became serious and you were no longer carnal?
So I start really settling down when I meet my wife. So.
What year is that?
Oh, gosh, this is Holly. I can't remember. I'm in trouble publicly. No. So I married her in 86 and probably about 83.
83.
Yeah. And so we're stationed up in Long Beach, right? Back when they had an actual naval station there. And she's going to Long Beach State. And her and her roommates, they really love living on the beach, but the property's a little expensive. But they figured that they can go get a house on the beach and that, if they ask sailors to be their roommates, the sailors will be at sea, so they'll practically have it to themselves. So they did this, and 2 of my shipmates became their roommates. What they did not understand is they didn't get 2 roommates. When the ship pulls into port and we haven't been on land and there's liberty to be had, the entire ship are their roommates. And so we'd show up down to the beach in throngs. And that's kind of how I met her. In fact, I was kind of like, okay, this is the carnal Christian part of me, because, I'm walking down the street and I got a 6-pack of beer in each hand, and I'm going to go hang with my shipmates. And she pulls up in a little yellow Mustang and asks me if I want to ride. And I have no idea who she is.
This is like a scene out of a TV show.
And I'm kind of sitting there and I'm going, man, she's a cute little blonde, and this just does not happen to me. So I just get in the car and we take off. But that's how we meet.
Oh my gosh.
And we fall in love. And, we end up getting married. And it turns out that her dad was a Naval Academy graduate and a vet himself. So she's in a Navy family and I'm in a Navy family. And we both have homes that are full of pictures of people with Cracker Jacks on the wall. And, so that's kind of how it started.
If we could legally get away with this, but we can't, as you tell that story, Joseph should put the Miami Vice music in the background, because that sounds like a scene out of Miami Vice.
Oh, yeah. Well, pretty much. It is the 80s, so we do have those weird color
clothes. The problem
clothes.
is we would be hit for legal rights of playing the Miami Vice music.
You're right.
So
no, I meet her and I settle down. And understand, she's a Catholic and, been her whole life gone to private girls' school and, some of the bigger ones. She's from the Pasadena area. La Cañada, Flint Ridge. Her own grandparents are settled into the Pasadena area. Her dad's her grandfather's like the former captain of the USC football team. They're well connected in that particular area. They've been there forever. His family built the Pasadena Freeway. And
hey, don't tell Candace Owens.
Oh, no.
Use that.
I know.
Anchor board member was connected. Was connected somehow.
So, no, they are. I'm not. I'm just a poor Hanyak from the East Coast.
There you go, Maria. You can use that one.
No, I meet her. She settles me down quite a bit. We're both relatively conservative people. I mean, my story of salvation is not necessarily one of an axe murderer comes to know Christ. Which is true and a very real thing. And we see wonderful, radical transformation. Mine is a little bit more than, he's just sowing his wild oats, or he's just a boys will be boys kind of level of sin. I mean, I'm not necessarily a down and out, have let the whole trail up. I've got enough goodness into me to have pride about who I am. I'm not one of them. Kind of thing. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
But still recognizing a need for Christ. And so it's actually kind of an interesting kind of transformation for me, because it's through largely, crazily, it's through a marriage to a little Catholic girl. And we get married and, the concern, not so much from my family, but largely from hers. In fact, I had to get interviewed by her grandmother over dinner, who was very concerned that I claimed not to be a Catholic. And so she asked me at dinner what I believed. And, in a moment of inspiration, I went from Adam all the way to Christ's, resurrection. And she's got tears in her eyes. She says, "What do you mean?
Your wife had tears or
no, the grandmother?" She goes, "You're a Catholic," after I had explained all of that. And so apparently it was good enough for somebody they call Nanny. And so I got to marry Holly. Years later, in the stress of marriage and kind of things like this, at first we're going to mass. Okay, a little bit of stand up, sit down, pray. I didn't get most of it. Although, particular little church I had the Maranatha music, which is the Calvary Chapel music, so they would sing that. But it's really I'm not feeling connected, and so I'm kind of hearkening back, and so I end up going over to a little Calvary Chapel that's forming up in Menifee. It's now a revival, and we meet in a high school music room. Holly comes over and she joins me, and because she didn't want the family to be apart on Sunday. And so she joins me. Okay. And so we're in there, and she's the first time she's over there, and we get in the car afterwards, and, she's making little quips. They carry Bibles to church. Weirdest thing she'd ever seen, somebody taking a Bible to church. She's over there. I thought that pastor was rude. What do you mean? I thought people had questions and he was ignoring them. Actually, they were holding their hands up in worship, but but these are the kinds of things we went to. And she got just enough out of it to want to continue coming to me. And so Calvary Chapel's growing and growing. I'm getting turned on to this little series called Left Behind series. I got 2 or 3 of the books. I read them. I notice they're kind of moving from where I'd read them to over by the bed where she sleeps. And I keep buying them. I'm going up to this Berean bookstore up in Riverside to get them. And then all of a sudden I noticed books that I hadn't purchased in that same series that kept showing up. So she's over there buying Left Behind books on her own and going and reading it. And then all of a sudden, just one Sunday, she gets up and she goes right across that, congregation and accepts Jesus. I had to chase her. So
Wow.
we get down and so she accepted the Lord. Then there it was, her NIV Bible, ratted up whole thing. Every night she's reading that thing. Every single night. In fact, became more faithful of a churchgoer than I. So now she's kind of pulling and convicting me, and got more involved, and
That's good.
that's the way that it kind of played out.
Good deal. So that's a great example of how you can impact, in that area. And so now, by this time that you guys are at this Calvary Chapel in Menifee, and this is happening, what year is this?
Oh, this is, I want to say mid to the 1996, 1997.
Yeah,
We've been married about 10 years.
Because I think the first Left Behind book came out in 1995.
Yeah.
And for you guys who don't know, if you read the books, they're good. But there is a radio theater of the Left Behind series. They took each book, made it into a radio theater. One book is 4 hours long.
Yeah.
And it is so well done. They bring it so much to life. And unfortunately, the movies that came out, the 3 movies with Kirk Cameron, they're okay. They did another movie with Nicolas Cage. The rapture scene was cool, but the rest. And then they had another one come out with Kevin Sorbo, he made, which he actually picked up and he added stuff in, which did really good. But I highly, highly recommend the radio theater. It's better than the audiobook. It brings it to life. You can actually hear it. And what you discovered probably from reading the book, and your wife discovered, the whole gospel's in there.
Oh, yeah.
They give the entire gospel. They give, and Tim LaHaye is the author, along with Jerry Jenkins, which is the father of Dallas Jenkins, and they put it together. And I just want to speak on this a little bit. If you're not familiar with those books, it started with Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins. They were flying in an airplane, and they were having a discussion going, what do you think would happen if the rapture happened right now during this flight? And how would people react? And that's why the book starts in a flight.
Yeah.
Where the rapture happens while there is some people on a plane, but it's, and starts the story there. So now we're to get into the late 90s. And you guys are growing in Christ. And now, fast forwarding to current, you're here at the Anchor. Okay. And as it turns out, you live very close to the Anchor.
Yeah.
Yep. And we're not gonna say where for YouTube's sake, because we don't want to inadvertently tell everybody where you live.
Okay.
He lives inside the Anchor, everyone. No, and so you became part of the internship, which is called the Joshuas and the Deborahs. So let's talk about that for a little bit. How, first of all, how do you like the internship?
I enjoy it. I mean, it's a challenge. I started here sweeping floors and figured that's what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm on the board and I'm going to an internship. Certainly wasn't what I planted one night going out to dinner.
And how did you find the Anchor? I think that's an interesting story.
Oh yeah. So I'm going out to dinner with my wife and my daughter and her little baby, and coming out, and we're walking out here in Oceanside and heading on over to one of the local restaurants, and we get, just a little bit outside our door, right here in front of the Anchor, and the ladies informed me that they forgot something up in the house, and would I wait? Well, actually I said, no, I'll wait. You go get it and come back. So they went and took care of business, and I'm standing outside an Anchor sign, and trying to figure out what this is. And so I look it up on the internet while stuff's going on the inside of the place. And one of the comments was in there when I was reading it. We play pool and talk about Jesus. Well, I can talk about Jesus. Hopefully that'll work, because I don't do much pool. And so I came back the following Friday night, get over here, watching you two and Joseph walking back and snapping back and forth at one another. And I said, oh yeah, I'm at home. It's fantastic. This is casual, but committed.
Yep.
And, there's not a lot of airs. And there are no airs here. We're pretty real around here. I'll hang out. So.
Yes. And me and Joseph, we have a way about us. He's a brother from another mother.
Yeah.
So, so we talked, so going back, talking about the internship, you started sweeping floors, became a board member. The Lord led that for you to come on the board as things were transitioning. What do you like the most about the internship?
I actually like the, I do like the Bible study. I do like the fact that we're going through the Word, and I do like the lessons. I certainly do like that, but I like the call to increased commitment. Okay. I do have a busy schedule. I've got thousands and thousands of very good and legitimate excuses not to come on a Friday night. I don't even have to make them up. I've got reasons. I have all kinds of reasons not to come to a Tuesday. Got a long day, brother. But to be held to an accountability that pulls and asks for, I don't sense a huge requirement. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
Right.
But that calls you to stretch and participate, even when you're tired and beat and you've got plenty on your plate and things pulling. That's creating a lot of growth in me, I feel, right now. Okay, because I'm really good at excuses, really good. So this calls a little bit more, and it takes away the excuses, and I do believe it's a call from the Lord to, we're gonna need a little more from you, son. So,
okay. And before I get to my next question, I'm gonna ask you this: it's so you're talking about being stretched. So, did you ever imagine at the stage you're at in life, all of a sudden, Lord would just call you to be helping like this in the ministry and get stretched?
So this is pastor's way of saying I'm an old fart.
I could just ask, how old are you?
I'm 63, if anybody wanted to know. Look, a part of the reason, the Lord had been convicting me for a bit when I found the Anchor. It's not like, I just woke up one day and there was this magical angel screaming from heaven going, oh, go to the Anchor. That's not what happened. I'd been called for a while, and, and in determining that, I am 63. And when the Lord comes, I want to be found with my hands on the plow. That's what I determined. I determined that I wanted to finish well. My heart's full, but it's not because of anything that I have done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If there's a testimony that anything that's worthwhile here, okay, It's that my wife is saved. My brother is saved. My mother is saved. My daughter is saved. My first grandson's a savant and knows all the kings in the Bible and is just good. And I did not do any of that. I was less than the Christian that I was called to be. Yet the Lord showed mercy and was good. My brother is saved. In fact, my brother married that Richard McIntyre I was talking about, his daughter. Before I left in the Navy, I was quite sad, so I went to be baptized. And I asked this guy, youth pastor, Michael Delamarian, would you look after my brothers when I leave for the Navy? And he did. And he was faithful to his word. Ross, my brother, to this day will refer to him as his second father. And so, if anything, it's the testimony is that the Lord has been good at my life, despite the fact that I did not earn it, that I did not do well, that I did not run the race as well as I could have. So I'm going to do what I can now to finish strong. That's it.
Wow. That's really good. Really good. God's faithfulness. So my next question in this is, when it comes to the internship, what do you feel is the hardest part?
Yeah, all those things I was just sniveling about. So, I mean, I am 63. And, you know, I think Friday is my hardest day. I get up at 4:30. I go to work. I come back. I come over to serve. I'm sometimes not done till 10:30.
And you're working in Riverside.
Yeah. Parts of my body start hurting, you know, and that's hard. Okay. But there's this funny thing that I think we're missing in part of our present message. Okay. And that is the Lord calls us to go to work. He does. This is not a passive faith. This is it is a spiritual war. And we are called to engage the enemy. See, we're in enemy territory. This is occupied territory. And within us is the Holy Spirit. And we're kind of like parachuters from that movie Band of Brothers. And we're parachuting in. And where is the enemy? We're surrounded, but we love it. This is what we're called to do. We're in enemy territory. We're surrounded. And this is the way it's designed to be for now. And this is our role in it. And that takes work. There's no way around it. It takes work. You know, you get into Genesis and throughout the Bible, you know, take your Sabbath, take your Sabbath. Well, you missed the other half. You were called to 6 days to work.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't get to turn all 7 into a Sabbath. Okay. You're called 6 days to work. You know, we're living under a curse. And much of our lives are setting out to avoid this curse. Well, why we're going to go out there and we're going to live forever and we're going to live beyond pain and we're going to live beyond sweat and toil. Well, it's true that sin caused this and it wasn't the way that it was planned to be, but this is our present reality. And we're in the wilderness, brothers. Okay. And we have to accept that fact. We're not entering the promised land right now. We've got things to do here. The Lord will fulfill his promise and take us into the promised land in his time.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's what I have to and have had resolved is part of serving here in the Anchor. This is not a place you go hide. It's not a place where I just kind of slip in early and slip out, you know, slip in late and slip out early and don't feel accountable to anybody. So it's a good place.
Well, it's interesting what you just brought up because you have just answered one of my last 2 questions that I had for you.
Oh,
which you answered it perfectly.
right.
It was about what do you like most about doing ministry and what's the hardest part, but you addressed it. And you know, it's just amazing how the Lord has transformed things, and now with Sunday service starting and what that looks like and all these moving components and parts. And and it makes me think about Moses,
Mhm.
where Moses gets called the 80 to liberate a nation. And most of us in society, when you think about somebody on the tail end of life,
Well, thank
you're
you.
thinking golf courses and travels and beaches and weekend barbecues, and you don't really think about, oh, I'll start ministry now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it's how does your wife feel about all this that's happening? And let me put a question to that with how does she feel? Let me add this question. What would you tell or encourage someone in your shoes where, you know, they're not in their 20s, they're not in their 30s starting this, but they're almost like a Moses starting at the later end? What would you tell them, and how did your wife look at all this?
I'm still wrapping my mind around the fact that you think I'm 80 years old.
No, you're not. You get what I'm saying.
What? No, I mean, I don't.
Okay, fine. That you're like Moses shepherding a flock somewhere because you haven't had the burning bush moment. We can send you to Palomar Mountain. You come back with some tablets if you want.
Yeah.
So
No, no, Holly is quite supportive. I think sometimes, and that's, she's come over. She's quite busy with the grandchildren, and her own schedule for work, doesn't get her here as much as she would like. But part of the challenge, I think, is that we are, yeah. So, the other thing I like about the Anchor, it's boy church. Okay.
you might want to elaborate on that.
Well, much of, and even though we blend it and we have a lot of, really, really solid, in fact, very active, women participants, much of the suburban church, in my experience, and this is my own bias. I mean, it serves a lot of people, but I walk in there and it's kind of, well, isn't that sweet? Okay, this is Hallmark Jesus time. It's everything is so measured when we say it. It's so crafted. It's got an entertainment value. It's very, very mom friendly, and that's an important part. I mean, it's a huge part. But I'm not. So I would run the fart in the church ministry somewhere. And by that I mean it's.
Did you say fart in the church ministry?
Yes. So by that I mean it is. I want a place where I can be real with my brothers. Okay. I want to be a place where I've got men with similar backgrounds, tastes. We're not gonna cloak everything into to make. Have you ever read the Bible? It's not a sanitary document.
Yeah.
Okay. There's some realness in here. Okay. I mean,
So
even our, well, yes, but I mean, even our own hero, Paul. Okay. He gets up there and he's out to the Galatians who are taking pretty pride in their circumcision. And very clearly, especially in the old language, he looks back to him and says, you think that's effective? Why don't you cut the whole thing off? This is real talk. And I agree that, we don't need to have that talk in front of 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and that there's appropriate audiences for all of that. But we can't be afraid to have that talk. We can't be afraid to be male and be real. The Bible is full of that. And so when I say I've come to a boys' church, it means I am coming to a place where what's appropriate is a little bit different. Not that it's inappropriate, but it's a little bit different. I'm not worrying quite as much about the 4 or the 5-year-old or the young women whose sensibilities are easily offended because of her cultural upbringing. Do you understand? It's not a criticism, but rather it's saying it's
the fact that the delivery sometimes from the pulpit when we talk about is very masculine and
it's
raw
and
doesn't cookie cutter.
It's masculine, pretty direct. Yeah,
doesn't there's no Jesus saving the whales.
No.
Save the whales.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. And that's one of the things that we've addressed too, because the Anchor's heartbeat, we've always said, is the military, and the military is 90% male.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of male dominance in it because of the fact that it's mainly male. There are women, their families. So you have women who served in the service. You have wives. You got families here. But yes, it is correct. Yeah, we don't hold back. We don't sugarcoat.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I know, I don't hold back in the pulpit as far as topics. I've been to churches where they won't even talk about topics because they're too afraid the audience might get offended.
Yeah.
And I'll lay it out as it is. And yeah, so it's
no, and I don't think your presentation is offensive.
No,
I think it's properly careful for the audience that you have on Friday night, but you don't run away from what's at you in the Bible either.
Correct.
Okay. But there's also an element, and I've been around and with the guys outside of that Friday night that when we're sitting at the table, that we can have some pretty real conversations with people, and they're not afraid of dodging from it because it's truth. So,
okay. Yeah, I agree. Because when you brought up the, how'd you say it in the beginning? Fart in the church ministry. Fart in church. I thought you were talking about Joseph. So.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it. No, it's my euphemism for the guys that they put in the penalty box. It's like, okay, he's saved, but we keep him over there.
No, we let them out of the penalty box. So I've always said that it's very unorthodox, and when I try to explain it like that, I've been to churches where they like, brother, you can't say that, or no, we can't joke like that, and it's not inappropriate joking or grotesque, but it's just the fact that everything's cookie cutter and there's things never happen, and that's not true, and you're dealing with it. You're dealing with some of the most rough things that because with military, you're dealing with rough subjects and rough things that happen. And
absolutely, that's true.
And I think the other thing that's really good about how you're bringing things up, this place will help anyone who wants to go to the mission field. Meaning, if they want to see what it's like to deal with things that you're not used to and lingo you're not used to and roughness, just come over here and just hang out with us and the military. And you will discover real quick how you get out of your comfort zone, because the way they talk, conduct, everything, it's very different. Where sometimes you see, and not bagging on the other churches, they got their style, but where you see some of these churches where I've even talked to the women who come here that have served and seen a lot of rough things or been through rough things in their life, and they go to a women's group at another church, and the biggest trouble some of the women are talking about is Junior is really sick. Please pray for him. We're not going to make it to Disneyland. And then you have women who are like, you know, the stuff I've had to do in Iraq and Afghanistan, or things I've come across and seen or have happened. And so, but I get what you're saying. So yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of people like about this place is there's a rawness to it. And so you fit in perfectly in it because you're pretty raw and to the point. You just don't hold back any punches. Yeah, you do really good as a board member. I'm glad you're on the board.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and the way you handle things. So, it's amazing to hear your testimony, how the Lord used you. Eventually, I will probably want to have you on a Friday night, tell your story. Because that's the goal for the rest of the interns. On one of the Friday nights, they tell their story. And some of them have no idea that's coming. If they're watching this now, they know. And then the other thing, ladies and gentlemen, because of Sunday and because how we're going through things, one of the things we're doing is, because I may still have to travel, the board is filling in on Sundays to continue teaching through the word. So there's all these new territories that we are doing because this is new to us.
Yeah.
The Anchor has never had a Sunday morning like service and stuff like that. We're gonna do breakfast with it. We've been open on Sunday to come hang out like a Saturday and do food, but we've never done a Sunday morning service. And so here we're gonna kick this off soon. And you know, actually, no, we're kicking this off, and you know, but it's exciting. If you're watching this, normally to wrap up, we have questions, but obviously with the interviews, we don't. And I'm praying about these Bible questions. Keep sending them in. I'm going to answer the best of my ability. I'm recognizing there's a lot of subjects to talk about too, that the Lord's put in my heart to just talk about. I think one of the things we're going to talk about coming up soon is PTSD in the church, and what the church has failed to recognize about military vets and PTSD, or even people who've been through other trauma, PTSD. But you know, I appreciate you coming on, telling your story, and being part of the Anchor and seeing where this all goes. And 2026 is going to be an interesting year. We'll see how this plays out. So to wrap everything up, as it always starts, ready in the right, ready in the left. So are you ready for the Lord's return? Are you ready for what the Lord has for you and what he's going to do in your life? So always be ready, be in the word, and be prepared. Have a great week. And we hope to see you at one of the Bible studies or Sunday morning. Be blessed.
Ceasefire! Unload! Anyhow,